that there's a lot of opportunity for mobility. So once you have a degree in one of these, you can easily move on to the next level if you'd like. I can also imagine that if you have a Filipino degree and you want to study a specific thing, you might need additional requirements in order to apply for one of the programs. So besides the programs that you just heard about in the video, there's also a few extra programs, including a preparatory year or a pre-master, which will give you some time to take additional courses. Some of the programs also require an English proficiency test, so you can take some time to prepare for that and pass those exams if you like. Maybe another thing that's different to the Filipino education system is our way of teaching. The Dutch way of teaching, especially at the Research and University of Applied Sciences, is that it very much evolves around critical thinking. All of the classes are very interactive, usually they're quite small. You have some theoretical seminars, but then afterwards you have a practical seminar with your professor with a maximum of around 30 students, in which you work in groups. It's very student-centered and it's very much aimed towards critical thinking, so no reciting of facts or anything like that. The Dutch education system is really to learn you to ask questions, to be critical of what your professor tells you, and be critical, of course, what your fellow students say as well, and have a constructive discussion about that. I think concerning time, I'm going to skip the PhD, but please, if you have questions, do let us know about that. Because I want to mention some of the things that might be of interest for you if you decide to study in the Netherlands. There's a checklist that you can look up on studyinNL.org, and it gives you an overview of all the things that you need to take care of if you decide that you want to study in the Netherlands. Please give yourself enough time. We advise you to take at least a year or so in advance to look at this page and see some of the requirements that you might need. It also has information about different programs, including their deadlines. So yes, I think this is a very, very useful tool. You can find, like I said, your study program there as well, and it gives you the opportunity to filter. You can check if you want to have a bachelor's or a master's or etc. You can even filter by the city that you want to live in and some of the study programs and directions that you have. I think it's a good tool to filter through some of the bulk of information that you might find online. So please write down this this website. It will tell you a lot about, this is what it looks like. It will tell you a lot about your application. It's hard for us to tell you a little bit more because the different universities have different requirements, of course. But please do not, because most of the programs are in English. Of course, Filipinos are very well versed in English, but sometimes they require an English proficiency, so do mind that. Once you apply for a program, we have a program called StudyLink. It's an online program in which you can register for the programs, and it will also be your gateway to talk with the Dutch government and with your educational institute about some of the requirements that you might need. This could be a good opportunity to take your preparatory year, of course, to fulfill all of your requirements. Please ask the institutions that you want to apply if this is an opportunity for you. Some important points to take into consideration. Please apply well in advance and give yourself some time to read it through. The deadlines vary very widely. It can be between December and August, so basically most of the year. And some of these institutes have application fees. There's a restriction in the Netherlands. You can only apply for 4 programs at a time, of which 2 can be numerous fixes. So we have some programs that have so much interest, they cannot take in all the students that apply and fulfill the requirements, so it's basically a lottery. If you want to apply to some of those, please do keep in mind that even though you fulfill all the requirements, you might not still be able to participate. An example of that is studying medicine. It's very, very popular. Then, money. I know that this is a big question for some of you, including scholarships. We'll get there. Actually, the Netherlands is relatively cheap if you compare it to some of the more native-speaking countries like the UK or the US. The tuition fees are a little bit lower. But still, it's good to take into consideration roughly what some of these programs might cost. The institutes, of course, can tell you by themselves what exactly it costs, but for, assuming that most of you are Filipino, so non-EU, yes, do check in advance because the fees are a little bit higher. Of course, they're subjected to change, and depending on some of the scholarships might be deducted. But another thing that's also important to take into consideration when you apply are the cost of living in the Netherlands. You can get a job, we'll get to that a little bit later, but of course living in the Netherlands is also more expensive than living in the Philippines. This is a rough estimate, depends of course. If you have a party lifestyle, maybe add some money to join the parties, or if you want to travel a lot. Maybe you want to include a sports membership, of course that's all based on the lifestyle that you have. It also depends a little bit on where you're going to study. If you want to apply for Amsterdam, definitely take into consideration the higher end of the spectrum than some of the other cities. And of course, if you don't want to spend money on public transport, just get a bike like all the Dutch people do. On the website that I mentioned, there's also a lot of information about financial resources. Definitely also do reach out to some of the programs that you want to apply for. And I think that leaves us one last matter is your visa. Of course, if you go and study in the Netherlands, you get a student visa. But what's not included in your student visa is what we call a tewerkstelling visum. So that your student visa doesn't allow you to work. So once you go to the Netherlands, you will need to apply once you're there also to be able to work. Non-EU students can work up to 16 hours a week. So that's roughly 2 days. It can help you to cover some of the cost. Another important part is that healthcare insurance is mandatory in the Netherlands, and it's not very cheap. I want to tell you, students do get major discounts, but it is mandatory. So check well in advance if your Filipino health insurance covers your living in the Netherlands, or do get a Dutch healthcare insurance. I'll skip the housing because I think you'll be able to figure it out. I want to end the presentation with a little bit of fun because that's also important. Being a student myself in the Netherlands, I can tell you that the student cities are very vibrant. There are a lot of study organizations, student associations, lots of ways to have fun. So please also consider, if you're going to study in the Netherlands, to apply to one of those. It will be very easy through these associations to make friends. Sometimes they can even help you with housing. There are lots of international student associations. They're not the very stereotypical fraternities that you might have in your head. It's a really great opportunity also to get in touch with the Dutch people, but also your fellow students, because after all, one of the things that we're also known for is the Dutch DJ scene. So please do enjoy that while you're there. And of course, as a student, you can get many discounts, but I think that will be easy once you get there, you get your student card. Lots of bars, restaurants, most of the museums have major discounts for students, even some clothing shops. And the government also can give you some subsidies for your health insurance and for your housing. Depends a little bit on your situation. But yeah, that's it. I hope I stuck to the time a little bit, so there's more time for your questions if you have any of those. You can also always reach us through this email address. And of course, we have booths downstairs on the 3rd floor, so please come and visit us if you're interested. I don't know if any of you have questions. Don't be shy, I don't bite. If not, then I think I'll give it to my colleague who's ready for the next presentation. Yeah? All right, thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoy the fair.